right, well, welcome back to Ride or Raise. This week we're looking at Job 1:8, actually next couple weeks. And today we're going to be asking the question, how does he consider, and the he we're talking about here is Satan. How does Satan consider Job, and then how does he consider all of God's servants? What does that look like? So that's what we're going to answer today. So this is the first question that I want us to grapple with. Now, if God's asked Satan to consider his servant, then how does Satan consider the people of God? What does he do? Before we can answer that question, though, we need to consider what consider means. Our English word consider comes from the Latin word, which means to sit by or close to, or to set the mind or the eye to. This is also what the original Hebrew word means, to put down or to set down, to sit down next to. And so the definition of the word, according to Webster, is to fix the mind on with a view to careful examination, to think on with care, to ponder, to study, to meditate on. Now, one of Webster's example sentences was Job 1:8. Now, when Satan considers God's servants, what does that entail? Well, let's take a look at some examples I'm going to give you. The first one is the differences in nature. There's a difference in nature between a child of God and Satan. Satan, at his core, is a traitor and a liar. He was created good, but he was in his heart. But he said in his heart, I will ascend to heaven above the stars of God. I will set my throne on high. I will make myself like the Most High. And so he turned and betrayed his creator and the role for which he was created. Jesus, in John 8:4, says this about the nature of Satan. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks out of his own character, for he is a liar and the father of lies. This is the very nature of Satan. At his core, this is who he is. So when he considers God's people, he must see the difference between us. God says that Job is blameless, upright, fears God, and turns away from evil. These are all the opposites of what describes Satan. And so you see, Satan must consider the difference between God's people, Job, and himself. There's a large difference between these people. Job is upright, blameless before God, shuns evil. Satan, however, does the other opposite. He does the opposite. He loves evil, is not blameless, and is not upright. He's a liar. He's a traitor. And so we see the conflict there already between his nature and the people of God's nature. Not all humanity, because most humanity is just like him, but there's a difference between God's people and Satan. The second thing is the blessing and joy of God's people. Now, Satan considers that God's people are blessed and joyful. He points this out when he's talking to God. He says to God, you put a hedge around him and you bless the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased. God's people love him, and though we do not now see him, we believe and rejoice, and that joy is inexpressible and filled with glory. That's what Peter says. Satan does not know this joy. The presence of God is an irritant and a source of anger and frustration. For God's people, we can sing with the King in Psalm 21. You make us most blessed forever. You make us glad with the joy of your presence. In the end, Satan knows that he will never see the joyous and blessed presence of God, but will only experience forever the wrathful presence of God in the lake of fire, where he will be tormented day and night forever and ever. The third idea I want us to look at is the potential flaws of God's people. That's what Satan looks at. He looks for the weak points in Job. He considers that he might love and cherish, what does he love and cherish more than God? And that's what he kind of asks himself. He says, well, stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face. So he's like, well, let me just blow away. Let me just blow up everything that he loves. And that'll do it. So Satan thinks he sees the flaw in Job's character. He's loving his stuff. He's loving the things he's got from God. He doesn't love God himself. He doesn't have faith in God. He doesn't have a saving faith in God. So Job is loving God because of the stuff he's got. Take that stuff away, and the true love of Job would be exposed. It's actually his things. not God. When that wasn't a flaw in Job because he tried, didn't work. So what does he say? Well, skin for skin. All that a man has, he will give for his life. So he kind of sees the nature, again, kind of studying the nature of humanity, knowing the nature of humanity, thinking he knows Job, looking for that weak point, prodding him to find the weakness. Perhaps Job's one life would be more valuable than his love and faith in God. Maybe Job would trade his faith in God for his life. Maybe he would make the deal with the devil. Maybe that would cause him to stumble. Well, Satan is studying Job and probing for his weakness. You can see it. He's trying to find that weakness. This is what he does to all God's people. Is there something that you love more than God? Because if there is, he will find it and then exploit it to your detriment and to a great fall, probably. So you need to shore up the defenses on that one. Next thing is the roadblocks to his kingdom. Now, Satan considers God's people and how they're obstacles to his rule, how they're roadblocks to his kingdom. How are the followers of God stopping him from having this total sway over the whole earth? Satan is the prince of the power of the air that is now at work in the sons of disobedience. Remember, he was going to and fro on the earth and from walking up and down it. No one was stopping him. His kingdom, as Jesus calls it in Matthew 12:28, is among all those that side with him. For Jesus' kingdom was with all those that follow him. Whosoever is not with me is against me, Jesus said. So Satan had free reign over the hearts of the evil. But when someone comes along like Job, he hits a roadblock. Well, wait a minute, I can't just steamroll this guy over. He's trying to stop me. He's not letting me do it. Now, it's very telling that when Satan and God talk about Job the second time, Satan begins with the same boast that he was walking up and down on the earth, going wherever he wanted to go. It's interesting that he starts off the same way. But it wasn't true because he didn't go back to Job. He doesn't say, well, I took everything away. So God has to point him out again. God rebukes him and in effect says, hold on, wait a minute. Did we talk about Job last time? Did Job fall away? He's still here. His faith is still strong. That faith that, where does faith come from? It comes from God. So, he's holding fast to his integrity. Satan's only response is to ask for a second chance. In his asking for a second chance, Satan admits that Job is a hindrance to his power advancing. Basically, what he's saying, well, can I do this? Can I try again? At least let me take his health. Let me hurt him again. And he admitted, like, I can't just walk out to and fro on the earth because, yeah, you're right. Job is still there. He's stopping me. He's a stumbling block. He's a hindrance. I can't just rule how I want to on earth because there's a Job there. He's stopping me from just running evil all over the earth. So God's people are an irritant to the kingdom of darkness. It's a stumbling block. It hurts it. It can't just do whatever it wants to do because God's people are there, and so it's a roadblock to the kingdom of darkness just doing whatever they want. The next thing is that when Satan considers Job, he sees a person that he wants to attack. There's a stir there. There's a stir of desire to hurt. When he sees the godly person, he wants to hurt him. That is his first response. Let me go after him. That is his first response. And so the works of Satan, as described in the Bible, always hurt the ones they're directed at. If you just took the cases of possession and oppression by Satan and evil spirits in the gospel, you would see them destroying the lives of those people. Men, women, children, all had their lives turned into a living hell, basically, by the demons. They come to steal, kill, and destroy. All people who side with Satan are victims of his power. That's interesting because, you have all those people that are like, well, I'll just, hang out with my friends and Satan in hell. No. If you're there with him, that means that he used his power against you. and in hell you're gonna suffer torment. So I don't see how that's gonna be better. Doesn't make any sense. But if you follow Satan and do what he wants to do, it's only gonna hurt you. There's no way for good to come out of that. But as a servant of God, Job had really a target painted on his back because he was blameless and upright. Notice that God does not say, hey, consider Eliphaz, Bildad, or Zophar, Job's friends. He doesn't say that. The more you grow in the Lord, the greater target you become, the greater roadblock you are. And so the desire to hurt you becomes greater because you are a hindrance. You are a problem. If you just roll over and do whatever Satan wants, then he's got you. He's got you in the bag. So, big deal. You're just destroying yourself. He doesn't have to do it. He doesn't have to try to hurt you, because he's just going to and fro wherever he wants. You're just part of it. You're just a reed blowing in the wind, a piece of grass that he's stepping on. That's all. So the more you grow, the more you become a target. That's just how it is. Job was the biggest target of all, and so Satan wanted to hurt him. Next is that God's people, they stir a desire to make them worry. They stir a desire to make them worry in Satan. He wants to make God's people worry. Now, Job had lost his wealth, his children, and his health. He's in great suffering, right? His wife tells him just to curse God and die. But James reminds us that Job was steadfast in his faith in God. God was correct that Job would never curse him. God obviously God knew what was going on. He knows all things. He knows the future. He knew that God, but Job would never give up his faith. Yet, Job was human, right? Job was human. He was a sinner. Though Job never spoke evil of God and remained faithful, he did worry. This is as far as Satan could push Job. Job curses the day he was born and wishes that he was stillborn. He says, "For the thing I fear comes upon me, and what I dread befalls me. I am not at ease, nor am I quiet. I have no rest, but trouble comes." But does God leave him in dread and trouble? Does he leave him in this state? Does God leave Job in this questioning, worrying, and allowing his faith to really go to the extreme, to the limit? Does God allow him to fall away? Does God allow him to shipwreck his faith? No. He comes to Job in a whirlwind and corrects his thinking. He says, wait. Nope, you're not going to go. And so the proverb was true of Job. Give instruction to a wise man, and he will be still wiser. Teach a righteous man, and he will increase in learning. This is exactly true of Job here. He's a smart man. He's a wise man. He is a righteous man. And so if you correct him, he will respond the right way. Like, oh, yeah, I didn't know that. I need to learn. That's what a wise man does. A wise man does not kick against correction. He'll take it and like, yeah, I'm not perfect. A humble man will take correction and will listen. So here you have this idea that Satan is stirred by God's people for a desire to just make them worry all the time. And so that's where Job goes. He goes to the place of worry, which is not good. But I think it is sinful because God corrects him. He says, no, who are you? Who are you to worry and wonder what's going on? That's not your place. The next thing is that it's God's people stirs a desire to make them useless in Satan. Satan wants to make them useless. So if Satan can't get Job to curse God, then he would settle to make him useless in the hands of God. So he doesn't actually curse God and turn his back on God, but he makes him just kind of useless. And so Job allows his friends to speak things about God that aren't true. And Job is pushed to the brink of uselessness. He doesn't correct his, he just kind of, he doesn't do what he should. He pushes back against his friends a little bit, but I mean, Come on, just hey, you should have just told him to shut up because you're speaking things against God that aren't true. And so that's what he should have done. But so maybe he's, maybe a sin of omission there, maybe. But he's really useless. I mean, he's suffering, and that's all he's doing, right? He's not able to help his friends. He's not able to correct his friends because his friends are in trouble. You look at the end of the story, they're in big trouble. And so they need his help. The righteous man needs to come to their aid. And he eventually does, but God has to intervene before that happens. And so Job goes to this place where he's pretty useless at this point. But God comes and Job confesses. Then God makes Job useful again. He tells Job's friends to get some animals for a sacrifice, and Job will pray for them, and God will forgive them. Because the idea is like, hey, you're going to die because you're lying about me. You better hope that Job comes through for you. So Job prays for his friends, and then God increases his usefulness beyond what he was before the trouble came. He's instantly given gold and money. His family comes around, his friends, and they give him gold. He acquires more animals than he had before. He and his wife are fruitful and multiply with 10 more children. And when he dies, he was able to bless both his sons and daughters with inheritance. He actually gives his daughters a share of the inheritance as well. So Satan desired to make Job useless in the kingdom of God, and yet he still stands today for us Christians as one who remains steadfast under severe trial. So Satan may afflict in every way, but we're not crushed. We might be perplexed by him, but not driven to despair. We might be persecuted by him and his minions, but we are not forsaken. We might be struck down like Job, but not destroyed. And so that's what we see in Job. So when Satan considers Job, he's seeing all these things, and he sees the same thing if you're a follower of God. So that's the end of our study for today. Next time we will look at the question, why does God allow this? Because we've seen what Satan's doing to him. Now we need to ask the question, why does God allow this? Why does God allow him? And actually points to Job and says, okay, do what you want. So why does God do that? That's the question for next time.